Diane Hoskins, Global Co-Chair of Gensler, the world's largest architecture firm, whose projects, I believe, include the Washington's Capital One Arena and others. You'll have to fill us in on the rest of the landscape that you're responsible for in the city. And Judy Marks, Chair and CEO of Otis Worldwide, a recent interviewee in my CEO Signal newsletter. Thank you for that, Judy. Whose elevators and escalators, we all know, they move 2.4 billion people a day, you tell me. So we are here to talk about the global workforce, where it's at right now and where it's going. We've given this session, the title of Out of Office, which may confuse people. It's a reference to a little feature in the CEO Signal newsletter, which we have every week. So we will probably get back to the office at some point, but we want to focus on the workforce more than the workplace. But just to establish our starting points here, can I assume that after all of our debates about remote working over the past 5 years, you're both team office, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So you know the vested interests will carry on without fear or favour. Can you just start us off, both of you, by just giving us a profile of your own workforces? Judy, what is the Otis workforce?
Yeah, delighted to be here, Andrew. I have the privilege of leading probably one of the most distributed workforces you can imagine across the globe. We go to market in 200 countries and territories, and not just in terms of manufacturing and installation, but we have, of our 72,000 colleagues, 44,000 are field professionals. They're mechanics who keep the world moving every day. And if you think about us, we're in every city and every town and anything 3 stories and above across the globe. So we have an incredibly distributed workforce where more than half don't go to an office or branch office. We have 1,400 branch offices because they're out serving customers every day, and they're doing it in a very independent, autonomous manner. But we do have, as you can imagine, 17 manufacturing facilities. We are an industrial company, so we've got a manufacturing workforce that's right in the midst of automation changes and digital thread. And then we have every other skill you can imagine, again, distributed across 1,400 locations, sales, service, all of our finance, as well as our R&D. We have 6 design centers spread across the globe. So no matter where you are, we are the company now for 171 years that has helped to provide the technology that allows cities to rise and to keep everybody safe and moving.
Right. And Diane, what's the profile of your workforce right now?
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. It's great to be here. It's great to be here with Judy. You know, it's hard to think of a building without an elevator, right? So there's.
But we need you for the building.
Well, there we are. Symbiotic relationship here. We are part of the same ecosystem, but different parts. So as Judy described, you know, they're part of the actual implementation, and we're at that very front end in the design. And so our workforce, and we're the largest architecture firm in the world, we are in 56 different locations, different cities across the world. You can imagine, you know, architects are needed everywhere. I like to say it's the second oldest profession, but you know, we've always needed places.
Journalism being the first.
and more reputable as well. Yeah.
But we have, you know, we're the beginning of that kind of creative process, and so we have, you know, over 6,000 creative folks that are working with clients. Literally, we worked with clients in over half the countries of the world, so over 100 countries, where our teams were working with clients to create, whether it's that new building or a stadium or headquarters or a retail, but all types of places where people experience life. And really that's the business that we're in, is creating experiences and creating the theater of those experiences all around the world, different cultures, different people, you know, different localities, different regulations, being very local, but also being very global as a community.
All right. So let me ask you to both sum up how you think those workforces have changed in the past 5 years? I mean, Judy, you spun off from your former parent company exactly 5 years ago this month, so it's kind of a natural break point, even if we didn't have the pandemic, to think about having disrupted so many of our workforce and workplace patterns. But what things actually changed? What are the most meaningful shifts you see?
Yeah, so we, as you can imagine, have a workforce that spans from an entry-level workforce. About a sixth of our workforce globally is Gen Z, and they have a very different focus than what I call our loyal experts, who are on the other end, who are boomers like myself. And it's that blend and that spectrum in between, whether it's a millennial, that are all motivated by different reasons, whether it's purpose, whether it's work-life flexibility, or whether it's independent work. And the challenge I think we have, not just as leaders, but as a society, is trying to create an environment, logically and physically, where everyone can succeed and where you can optimize the workforce to be able to serve customers. So here's what's in common. It's human, it's customer-centric, and in our case is based on our foundations, which we call our absolutes, which are safety, ethics, and quality. And that's where we start. Then we add technology, then we add working together in collaboration and autonomy at different times, but that's really the basic.
Right. Diane, do you see a big shift?
Sure. I think what Judy said is so important, that culture and those values, really have been a continuum. But I would add to it what has changed. So you try to, think what is different. And I would say the level of candor among people, the kind of, I'd call it the honesty of the conversation about what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's been very healthy. Of course, we all hear the debates of, I don't want to be in the office or I want to be in the office. But in many ways, it's created a new level of alignment around, we all want to do great work. We all have these same values. But how are we going to get there, knowing what we know today about the benefits of some things that maybe we hadn't done before? And we want to take those forward and maybe challenge some of the things from the past that really didn't provide the value that we all kind of pretended it did. So I think it really opened the door to something much better.
I mean, candor may be something that not every CEO or co-chair would appreciate from their whippersnapper employees, but how do you actually channel that? How do you make sure you're getting the best feedback, the best ideas from your workforce without it being complete chaos?
Yeah, just to follow on, I'm sure we both have thoughts on that, because I think everyone here kind of experienced that I've got to listen to this moment. You can kind of only for so long say, well, that's just going to pass. And so really taking serious what you're hearing, but also, and this is that wisdom part that hopefully as leaders we can bring to that, is kind of, being able to pull out what might be about something else. Is it really about how you like to work, or is it really about the fact you have a longer commute than you realized, but you've always had that long commute? Is it about childcare? Is it about things that really are core to doing excellent work? I don't have the resources. I don't have the interface with people I need to see. Those are material in achieving excellence in the organization. And so really starting to be able to categorize what goes where, not that they're not all important and you've got to figure out how to deal with all of them, but really as a leader starting to see what lands where and how you deal with it.
Yeah, no, I think what we've learned, especially over the past 5 years, is that people learn differently too. And as we continue to grow, and we've grown our organization fairly significantly with the growth in our business, especially our service business, is we needed to come up with a new way to embrace skill development, skill enhancement. If you go back in time, our business was a little more mechanical, and it went to electromechanical, and now it is absolutely digital and connected. So how do we, and we're doing a pilot right now with a few thousand of our new onboarded mechanics in Europe, to say, how do we effectively onboard you? How do we give you the real-time training you need, whether you're just joining the industry for the first time and you're an apprentice, whether you're coming from another part of industry or you happen to be more experienced, but the digitally native activity you need is different. So again, how do you do all that today in a physical environment and in a virtual environment? Because digital is going to pull us all through, but there's still that human element that you need.
Have you fundamentally changed the way training works?
Absolutely,
To do that?
absolutely. And you know, you can envision when we think about maintenance in the future, and you should all, I hope you all feel safe using our equipment. We like to think of it as the first autonomous vehicle around. But you know, safety obviously comes first, but and there's a lot of regulations for why we can't do remote maintenance. But can we do remote assistance through smart goggles and smart visuals in the future, where we can bring additional credibility and additional intelligence to bear? You know, Gen AI is going to play a tremendous role in all of this.
Can I ask, would you like to pick up on that?
I wanted to just, you know, add another piece to this kind of learning and training part that really is some shared experiences that both of our companies are having kind of in real time, which is, you know, again, and we can talk about AI and all that, but both of us are involved in some very, very visionary projects on the other side of the world that are demanding of our organizations a level of innovation that we've never even, you know, produced before. Elevators that are going sideways, right? That are going diagonally, that are going to move through a new city of 9 million people, and things that we probably can't even talk about out there. But that's the other part of what's happening differently perhaps in the last 5 or 6 years, is we have clients who have ambition that we've never seen before, and rising to that occasion as organizations to be able to deliver.
So I know you've got a fascinating report out this week on today's workforce, and it says today's workforce desires an experience that is intentional, aligned, and purpose-driven. What does that mean in practice?
Yeah, so Gensler is the largest architecture firm in the world and also the largest workplace design firm in the world. So we started in 1965, and for the last 60 years have been designing the workplaces and headquarters of most of the companies in this room and people listening, the top tech companies, the largest financial services firms, all the top law firms, and so on. And then about 20 years ago, we literally started our research institute to do more than just design workplaces, but to really understand how workplace is changing, and to answer that question for our clients of what makes folks productive? How do I, really enhance and grow productivity and effectiveness through the choices I make in terms of workplace design, and trying to connect those dots, and that's something we've been focusing on. So to answer your question, just giving a little background, we do surveys of workers across the world twice a year, and we've been following the data even during COVID and all of the dialogue that has occurred. And so our most recent workplace survey was really interesting, and I think everyone kind of knows that, wow, workplaces that are being designed today look really different. They're much more feeling of residential. You're not seeing that corporate kind of a look and feel. You're seeing more collaborative areas, coffee bars, and different kinds of meeting areas, phone booths and these sorts of things. And that's becoming the new language of our workplaces. But what we found, and I think the points that are being made, and I hope you all kind of go to our website and see the report that came out yesterday from our latest research, but that people want all those things, but they really want to make sure it's tied to how their organization works.
Right.
Don't just look in the latest magazine, CEO. Don't just look in the latest magazine and say, I want one of those. Ask people, really understand the amount of small meetings, larger meetings, the level of technology, the amount of virtual versus in person that's needed. And that's that purposeful part. No one wants to see, the spaces that are great, but no one uses. And then the things they need, they can't find. And that's still going on in the workplace today.
Okay. So Judy, we've been through the great resignation, quiet quitting. It seems though it's a slightly different economic backdrop right now. When you look at the markets you're across, what's the supply and demand equation like for talent?
Yeah, well, talent is certainly, depending where you are in the world, 80% of our 72,000 colleagues are not located in the United States. So we truly see talent, and it's reflected different in local markets. But the talent is there. There's challenges in aging populations. If you would go to Japan, some other locations where you really do have to start much younger to get people interested because it's a smaller talent pool. But in most of the world, whether it's South Europe, whether it's Middle East, Asia itself, the talent is there. They're hardworking, and we think we offer them a very bright future and a career. And I think, again, beyond the physical, which is important to all of us, it is all about having that sense of mission, that sense of purpose, and in most cases, especially today, making a difference for society.
All right. Final question. What do we call an elevator that goes sideways and doesn't elevate?
I would call that a non-starter, but...
On that note, Judy, Diane, thank you very much.